Session at 7:17 p.m. Trustee Srinivasan, can you lead us in the flag salute, please?
Please stand if able, face the flag, begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you.
All right, thank you for that. And Trustee Boyd, can you lead us in the district mission statement?
Yes. Berryessa Union School District provides all students the skills to become lifelong learners and successful 21st century global citizens.
Thank you. And Trustee Jimenez, can you lead us in the norms of the Board of Trustees?
Berryessa Union School District Board of Trustees agreed to focus on the best interest of students at all times, be respectful, listen openly, address problems and process, not persons, keep each other informed, maintain confidentiality, work toward the future, learn from the past, equal participation from all members, stay on task.
Thank you for that. And during a closed session, the board took action on 2 items. Dr. Fuentes, can you report these 2 items out?
Yes, thank you. On AM matter, the governing board approved the settlement agreement with a vote of 4-0 in favor for resolution of a dispute regarding special education services provided to a district student based on an IEP for the educational services in exchange for full waivers of any and all federal and state special education claims against the district. On the second matter, the governing board also agreed and approved the settlement agreement with a vote of 4-0 in favor of the resolution of a dispute regarding special education services provided to a district student based on an IEP for educational services in exchange for full waivers of any and all federal and state special education claims against the district.
Thank you for that, Dr. Fuentes. Now we'll move on to our annual Board of Trustees organization. I'll start with the first item. Is there a nomination for board president?
I nominate Jay Srinivasan for president.
Okay.
Second.
Is there a second. And okay, so we'll now take a vote. All in favor of this nomination, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, the motion passes. At this time, I'll now pass the gavel over to Trustee Srinivasan. You want to take the lead?
We can do that.
Okay.
Names are still there.
All right.
Thank you, Trustee Nguyen. Thank you for your service as the president of the board. Next, would like to elect the vice president of the board. Do I hear a nomination for the vice president?
I nominate Trustee Bowack for vice president of the board.
I'll second that.
It's been nominated and seconded. Ms. Bowack, do you agree? Yes, okay.
My pleasure.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Thank you, Trustee Bowack. We'll move forward with the election of the clerk for the Board of Trustees. Is there a nomination for election of the clerk?
I nominate Hugo Jimenez. as clerk.
And I'll second that nomination.
I forgot the name for a minute. Sorry.
Nominated and seconded. Ms. Jimenez, you're okay. All those in favor will say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Yes.
Thank you. Next, we'll appoint the superintendent as the secretary to the board. Do we need a nomination for this?
Just a motion.
Oh, is
So I'll go ahead and move to appoint the superintendent as secretary to the board.
there a second?
Second.
Okay. All those in favor will say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Item E is designate the regular meetings of the Board of Trustees. Designate that the regular meetings of the Board of Trustees shall be held at 981 Ritter Park Drive, open session commencing at 7 p.m. unless a different time and or place is designated by the board. Is there a motion for this item?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, all those in favor will say aye.
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 Thank you. Item 2, approve the designations, authorizations, assignments for 2024.
Yes, President Srinivasan, this item is naming the board representative for the county committee for, this is the 2024 election cycle Currently, Trustee Jimenez has been in that role on behalf of the board. Trustee Jimenez, do you have interest in retaining that seat on this committee?
Yeah, unless someone else wants to do it.
I think this is for this side.
Is this one part of that, Kim?
For all the assistant soups and directors.
Mm-hmm. Okay, got it.
Yeah, it's
Is this one
It's
under
for staff.
action? Oh, this one's
Yeah.
under the action item, yeah.
this is for staff approval.
Mm-hmm.
It's the attachment.
So we just need a motion for this, correct?
Correct.
So
Mhm.
So
is
I'll,
there a
I'll
motion?
move to approve the annual designation, authorization, and assignments for 2024 for BUSD staff.
Is there a second?
Second?
Yeah, all those in favor will say aye.
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 Motion carries. Thank you. We move to adoption of agenda. Is there a motion to adopt the agenda?
I'll move to adopt the agenda.
I'll second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. All those in favor will say aye.
Aye.
The agenda is adopted. Thank you. We don't have anything under recognition ceremonial. Item 7, public comments on consent calendar agenda items. We have one speaker, Mr. David Cohen. Before you come up, where is our speaker? Let me state the speaker conduct for all who wish to address the board during public comment periods. I have to do this. Speakers are requested to state your name and affiliation for the record. Each speaker will be given 3 minutes to address the board, 5 minutes per organization, and a maximum of 20 minutes per topic. Speakers are reminded to communicate with respect, fairness, and courteousness to each other and to all present. You are reminded not to use the name of any district employee in your comments. The board welcomes orderly communication from the public. Welcome, Mr. Cohen.
Well, thank you and congratulations, Trustee Srinivasan, on taking over as president. And thank you, Trustee Nguyen, for your service as president in the past year. I'm David Cohen, representing myself as a city council member for the city of San Jose. Just to comment on an item on consent, but also I was happy to be back here amongst friends. Even though I've never actually spoken in this room, it is still my home to be here in front with the Board of Trustees. I am excited that you will be accepting some of the gifts that we've offered from our office to the City Council. This year, we offered a $1,000 grant to each of the schools in the Berryessa School District. Several of them have taken us up on this offer, and tonight you're accepting, I think, 4 of them on your consent agenda. But we've left it wide open for the principals and potentially the PTAs at each of the schools to let us know what they'd like a grant for. So these grants cover things from buses for field trips for a couple of classes to the Cherrywood Hispanic Heritage Month Festival, to Sierramont getting new books for their library. So for those of you who haven't yet, let us know what you'd like at your schools. Please reach out to my office. The offer is still stands, and we're processing a couple others right now, but just want to say how much I appreciate our partnership with the Berryessa School District. As all of you know, it really is really important to me, and the success of the students in Berryessa is really important to all of us, and I look forward to continuing partnership with the families, staff, and students in the Berryessa School District.
Thank you, Councilmember Cohen, for your support. Thank you. All right. Moving forward on the consent calendar, is there a motion to approve the consent calendar items?
I'll move to approve the consent calendar.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. All those in favor will say aye.
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 Consent calendar is adopted. Thank you. Right, moving on to item 9, comments from the public on non-agenda items. We have a couple of speakers today. Speaker conduct again. All right. Before we call upon the speakers, I'd remind the speakers of the speaker conduct. Speakers are requested to state your name and affiliation for the record. Each speaker will be given 3 minutes to address the board, 5 minutes per organization, and a maximum of 20 minutes per topic. Speakers are reminded to communicate with respect, fairness, and courteousness to each other and to all present. You're reminded not to use the name of any district employee in your comments. The board welcomes orderly communication from the public. And we'll call upon Ms. Sheikhu Habibi.
To the President, Vice President, Trustees, Superintendent Dr. Fuentes, and Cabinet. My name is Sheikhu Habibi. I work as paraeducator at Toyon Elementary School and CSEA Chapter President, Chapter 364 President. I would like to express my appreciation on behalf of my chapter, Berryessa 364, to come to an agreement with Berryessa Union School District. In spite of all disagreements from both sides, I can say it wasn't simple and easy, but with our Assistant Superintendent, Human Resource, Mr. Cabrera, leadership, we accomplished this past year negotiation in our best interest, especially district classified employees with raised and health benefits. I want to hope also for CTAP, soon the negotiation come to an end in favor of teachers and district, because we need our teacher in good hands. Thank you.
Thank you for those comments. Next we have Mr. Joseph Herman.
Hello, good evening. My name is Joe Herman. I am the president of the California Teachers Association of Berryessa. I'm also a second grade teacher at Brooktree Elementary. I've been teaching in the district now 28 years. And so, as you know, we're continuing to be in negotiations. We've gone to mediation with the state mediator. And I'm here tonight just to express our members' frustration with management in negotiations, and how now we've been in the process of negotiating almost over a year for the 23-24 contract. So we are currently working on an expired contract. And as you know, teachers are so dedicated to students. They come before school, they come after school. They're school and maybe an hour before school working, planning their lessons, working so hard. After school, they might be there 3 to 4 hours planning. You know, we know, these principals, you know how dedicated teachers are and what their students mean and how they plan lessons tirelessly. On the weekend, they may be spending hundreds, if not thousands of dollars of their own money to meet the needs of their students. So now we're struggling in negotiations, and our members will do anything to get a raise that by the time we're probably finished may not even match the cost of living, inflation. And so our members now have gone to work to rule, where this difficult decision for them to only come in, during their contracted hours, to now come in at 7:30 and we walk in together, to leave at the end of the day and not stay 4 hours planning lessons, and to kind of send the message that, our work, we don't work for free. We want to be appreciated. We want to be respected. And this seems to happen every year, where we're constantly struggling just to get the basic raise to live in this valley, to provide for our students. And I know the district has been struggling with, average daily attendance, the students that we have, just to keep them in the classroom. But when they see labor unrest, when the families see labor unrest, it's even harder to get them in the classroom. If we want to bring new families into the district and they see labor unrest, you see teachers that are unhappy, that's not going to help bring more students into our district. So we have work to do. We should be working together. We should be working together, and we are working together still, but these relationships are not fostering right now. They're not building. We need to be building our relationship. We need to be working on the things we need to be working on, increasing so we can get budget stabilization for the district. These are the things we need to be focused on. Now I think we need to settle. These are the things we need to be working on. Let's settle. Let's come to an agreement. Let's get this done. Okay, we can work together. We know we can. This is an awesome district to work in, but we need to make it work. We need to make it work. So
Thank you for those comments. We'll move to item 10, reports and presentations. District Professional Development presentation. Dr. Fuentes.
Thank you. At this time, I'd like to invite Nicole Paredes to the podium to share with the board an update regarding our professional development offerings that we provided this school year.
Thank you, and good evening, members of the board, executive cabinet, Dr. Fuentes. I am pleased to have this opportunity to do a brief report this evening regarding the 2 district professional development days that we held this fall. A quick overview. There were 2 days. They were on August 7th and on November 1st. The professional development days were provided for and attended by classified and certificated staff from across the district. The sessions were held at various school sites as well as across the street at the County Office of Education. And the schedule for both of those days were 2 half-day sessions from 8 to 11, and the afternoon session was 12 to 3. And the highlights of those 2 professional development days is that they were available for all staff. The sessions for certificated staff members were designed in collaboration with the CTAB Professional Development Committee. We had a series of meetings with that committee to get input and determine the topics for those sessions for certificated. And they were designed to meet a variety of needs of the staff from across the district. And the outcomes were really aligned to support district goals and focus areas. And I'm pleased to share that overall the feedback was very positive from the participants. So to give you a sense of the topics, for elementary teachers and instructional associates, over the course of 2 days, those 2 days, they engaged in professional development related to our FOSS science program, designated ELD, Universal Design for Learning, which was provided by the county office, and trauma and healing informed practices, also provided by the county office of ed. For our middle school, the sessions were designed to have content area specific focus around differentiation in that content area, as well as a session on trauma and healing informed practices with Dr. Nikki Elliott. Our middle school music and PE teachers had an opportunity to engage in vertical collaboration and alignment over those 2 days, and the feedback was very positive, and they appreciated that opportunity. For our special education and service providers, there was a menu of sessions that were assigned for folks to attend based on their specific roles and needs of the positions they held. And you can see the list of topics there. For our clerks and secretaries, they also had sessions. August was designed around office procedures to support the successful opening of the school year, and November really focused on strategies for ensuring an environment of welcome and belonging. Our noon duty supervisors had sessions that really focused on safety and supporting students a safe lunch period for students. Our library media techs also attended trauma and healing informed practices. And in November, they had an opportunity to attend a session led by one of our own library media techs around ways to and create resources that really promote reading enjoyment and engagement. I wanted to be sure to acknowledge and highlight the various presenters and trainers that made both of those days very successful. We had presenters and facilitators from our adopted core curriculum partners. As you can see, we had Dr. Nikki Elliott. We had some consultants that came and helped us out, and the county office was a fantastic partner in both of those days. And I want to be sure to thank and acknowledge the administrators, the managers, and the certificated and classified staff that took the lead in presenting and doing some of the trainings. Briefly, I wanted to share the quantitative feedback. So for every session, we asked the participants to fill out a feedback form that basically asked the extent to which the session was relevant and meaningful to their work. And so what you'll see on these next set of slides is for middle school. You can see for both the morning and afternoon sessions, 80% or higher of the participants felt the sessions were relevant and meaningful or very relevant and meaningful. The same trend was true for our special education and service providers. The feedback was very strong, and I'm specifically pointing out the 3 and 4, the bar graphs on that rate 3 and 4. The participants found the morning and afternoon sessions to be very relevant and meaningful. And here's the feedback for elementary in November. Again, 90% or higher. And I'm happy to share that while the slides are not here for the August PD day, the trend was the same, and the data mirrored what we saw in November in terms of the quantitative feedback around the relevance of the sessions. Just a few pictures to highlight the great days that we had together. I could fill up many, many slides with pictures, but. And so the quantitative feedback tells one story, and we know that the qualitative feedback that we get through comments and feedback is also critical to knowing what our staff thought about the both PD days. And so Ed Services, along with our principals, we took some time to really dig into those comments and feedback to analyze what the staff had to say. And we identified trends that we called pluses, what worked, and we identified trends that we called deltas, meaning suggestions for change or needs that were identified. And so what we identified for pluses is that the teachers gained understanding of how to give more students access to content and implement the strategies that they learned. There were many comments around being able to approach challenges from a place of respect and support for the student. There's a better understanding of trauma, the nervous system, and strategies to support students. Teachers discovered English language development resources that are available to them. The presenters were knowledgeable and engaging, and they appreciated the time to collaborate with their colleagues. Really valuable suggestions and needs that were identified are additional resources to support social, emotional, and behavior needs. Teachers and staff named that they need time to reflect and plan and implement what they learned at those sessions. More time for collaboration with colleagues. And for middle school in particular, there was an ask for collaboration time across the sites in same departments. So the math teachers from each of the sites having time together, for example. And with that analysis, we worked to identify some next steps for perhaps this spring and into next year as we plan. Namely, finding creative ways to provide more collaboration time, providing additional strategies and support with implementing designated ELD, modeling of designated ELD lessons, identifying and providing additional trauma and healing informed training, and effective strategies to address bullying behavior. There's some next steps that we identified. I want to be sure to acknowledge our MOT and custodial staff for all of their efforts and support in making sure our facilities were ready. Our principals, assistant principals, and site staff, our instructional coaches, and of course, education services. Thank you.
Thank you for that presentation. Any comments, questions from the board?
I just would like to add, I just want to give my commendation to the Ed Services team and all of the partnerships that we have across the county and with our providers that added to each professional development day. I know it takes just quite a bit of time to orchestrate all of those sessions. One of the goals has been over the years to try to increase as many options as possible for staff. We understand, the importance of relevancy, and we continue to try to improve in that area to make sure that the need, the PD is matching the need, whether it's we have a new curriculum adoption or that, we know looking at the last slide with the future areas of interest, knowing post-pandemic, we've had increased needs with students and mental health and wellness. So I'm not surprised to see, interest in more trauma-informed practices, et cetera. So I think all of that just resonates also with what we see in the classroom. But I also just wanted to give my thanks to our team internally and all of those that were involved in providing that training to our staff.
Thank you. Thank you so much. All right. Item B is district enrollment presentation. Dr. Fuentes.
Thank you. At this time, I'd like to invite Kevin Franklin, our Assistant Superintendent of Business. Now that we've completed a first semester just about of school, we want to be able to provide the board with an update on what our enrollment looks like across the district as well as site to site.
All right. Good evening. Please bear with me with my voice. I haven't had my normal voice for the past 3 months or so, and I have this cough that I can't seem to shake. So that may come up as I go through this brief presentation. The typos kill me, and I know that there's one on here, so I apologize for that. I'm usually good at catching them, but Joe pointed this one out to me. But our enrollment has increased by 180 students over what we had originally projected for 23-24. And so that's why we're kind of giving this updated presentation to kind of show where we're at and what that looks like by each school site. However, while we do see this uptick in our enrollment, as we saw with Tom Williams' report a couple of board meetings ago or at the last regular board meeting, this looks to be an anomaly. It's not a trend that's looking like it's going to continue based on the data within the community. And so we have increased our enrollment for this current year and revised our projections in the 2 out years. So the enrollment and ADA are higher in those 2 future years, but we are still projecting declining enrollment. So hopefully that makes sense. So here's an illustration of what that looks like. We have the downward trend of enrollment over the past 10 plus years, dropping well over 1,000 students district wide. And so the green is what we have had historically as far as enrollment and what we had originally projected. And then the blue is the revised enrollment figures. They're on the right-hand side. So this is what the enrollment looks like by school site. And so you can see we're kind of up and down all throughout all of our elementary schools. Middle schools are all relatively close in enrollment. However, that changes as we project out a little bit. But you can see where we have a number of schools that are below 400 students and a couple of them under 300. So we do have Vincy Park and Cherrywood that are over 500. But on the flip side, we have Summerdale and Toyon that are below 200. So just wanted to show what that enrollment is at each school site. And then this next slide is classroom utilization. So as we talk about the lower enrollment numbers, what does that look like as far as our classroom usage? So in the darker orange color are classrooms that are actually in use with students, meaning that there are classrooms with teachers who have a roster of students. So there could be classrooms that are showing as available classrooms that are yellow, but those classrooms could be utilized for storage. They could be utilized for music. They could be, being used for some sort of intervention, or maybe that's school psychologists or speech pathologists who are using those rooms, but they do not have actual roster of students. So on this chart, you can see Ruskin and Summerdale have the most available classrooms based on the size of the school and the enrollment. And then with the middle schools, you can see Morilla has the largest amount of classrooms not currently in use with 16. And then Sierramont, they have the highest number of middle school students. So see, they have less number of classrooms. So we did not count classrooms that are being utilized by PE staff. And I understand sometimes they do utilize classrooms, but those are not included in the classroom counts because they're not being used at all time by the same teacher. Okay. Any questions about our enrollment and the trends that we're currently seeing and the utilization across our district at each school site?
Any questions from the board?
Okay.
Nothing specific. Thank you. Thank you for the presentation. All right, we'll move forward to item C, Measure L and Measure U, Construction Bond Program Update. Dr. Fuentes.
Thank you. At this time, we have Tony Conestab, who will provide his monthly update.
Thank you. Okay, our first picture is actually of the new gym. I'll get into that a little more, but we're almost there. I see the light at the end of the tunnel. We'll update Measure L and Measure U. Again, Measure L, we have some funds remaining. In one of the future board meetings, I'll bring some projects to finish out the bond. And to Measure U, again, the projects we completed in the last month. The Ruskin Playfield, we actually pulled the fencing off, I think this week, and they were actually starting to use it. There's actually grass on it. It's actually nice and green. I think we only found 2 gopher holes. Yep, 2. So it looks a lot better, but there's still a lot of work to do. And again, it'll take a lot to keep it maintained. The other project that we completed were the exhaust fans for phase 1. So all those exhaust fans on the ceiling and all the restrooms have been replaced. Things we have in progress are, again, the gym at Piedmont. So we do have a few things left. We have to test the fire alarm. We have the mechanical units is up and it works. The manufacturer is actually going to be out next week to start it up because that's part of the requirements by DSA now. Once that's started, we'll actually be able to get heat in the building. So then we can actually put the floor in, which will take about 5 days. But by somewhere between Christmas and New Year's, we should be done. And I know we actually have internet. So, because I know all the cameras work around the building. So, but it's looking better. And then the Morella exterior door project, this is dragging on where we're still having some problems with all the doors. I think 16 doors that we still have gaps under that. And we're going to have the contractor address that during the winter break. Oops, okay, sorry. Next thing in project progress is the fire alarm replacement at Brooktree, Majestic, Noble, and Summerdale. Majestic Way is almost complete. We hope to test that sometime early in the new year. They're currently working on Summerdale, and again, these should be completed by the end of July of this coming summer. Exterior door numbers projects, they're actually working on Piedmont right now, and they'll have Piedmont and Morel done by the end of winter break. Projects that we bid the HVAC and roofing project at the Piedmont District Office. We bid it, we had 6 bidders, they were all over budget. Later on in the board, we're actually making a recommendation that we reject all bids and we'll rebid the project. The next project was the LED lighting replacement. Again, 8 bidders, that came in under budget. We have a recommendation to award. Exhaust fan phase 2, again, we had 11 bidders. Again, under budget, and we'll make a recommendation to award. Projects in design, again, we have fire alarm replacement for Toyon, Vincy Park, Northwood. We're working on the warehouse replacement project, and we also have things for the PA and security system phase 2, which again are the projects that are the schools that are listed. We're working on the exterior window replacement project at Piedmont. Again, that's going to happen this summer. Again, that's part of the grant money that we're getting. And then the last project is the additional SDC restrooms at Toyon. We actually received DSA approval last week, so we're out to bid right now. We'll bid it in January. We hope to start early February and complete the middle of March. And here's some pictures of the gym. This is basically looking south down the fire lane. This is looking north the opposite way. Again, this is one of the gates we replaced at Ruskin. This is on the back side. The front side last month, I think I showed you where we had ornamental gates. The back side, we actually just put in chain link gates. Again, and this is the play field at Ruskin. There's actually a bunch of weeds, but it looks great, to be honest. And then this is the schedule. And one more picture of the gym. Any questions?
Any questions from the colleagues? I have a question. Did you have a question? I have a question about just because you mentioned Ruskin, the Ruskin playground. Correct me if I'm wrong. Are the playgrounds open for the community, for the public, general public, to come in after school hours to for recreation purposes, for their dogs to run around and so on?
They should be. We haven't leased them out until basically the beginning of March. We didn't want to lease it out to a soccer field or somebody like that just because.
No, what I mean to say is, like, after school hours, can somebody
anybody
enter?
can use the fields, correct.
Enter the field and
Yeah, just like normally any other school, one gate will be open, all the fences are down so they can use the play fields.
The reason I'm asking is, and pardon me, there's a little, might be gross, but when I walk around my local park, I see a lot of dog excrement. People don't pick up after their dogs.
Yes.
My worry is if they bring their dogs to the school grounds and let their dogs do their stuff and not pick up after them, it might affect the student's health, the child's health. So can we put up some signs saying that, your children play here, please pick up after your dogs, or put some fines or something?
I actually
like that?
think we have signs at most of the schools, because I know we have that at Noble for sure.
We had some problem sites, like Noble was a problem site with dogs.
Yep.
We changed the fencing over there. I'm hoping.
I mean, we can look and see what we have for signage, but yeah, obviously we can put signs up, but there's not much we can actually do to prevent people from not picking up after their dogs.
I understand. I mean, I know we have some.
I was going to say, the one good thing is that I believe the city, the dog park in the area should be opening up shortly, right? In the next month or so?
Yeah, that's
Or
when
this
construction is
coming-
going to begin soon, within a month. Yeah, so pretty soon.
The other thing is on our site is time change. It's usually dark by the time our gates are open after the after-school programs, around 6:30. So that kind of prevents people from coming out this time of year. Summertime is a different story.
Right. So I would say, if we have signs, put up more signs. I don't know if we can authorize like a fine of certain amount, like what we have at the parks. Yeah, that's a big issue, but something that strikes fear in the it doesn't. We don't need to go in that direction. It's common sense to pick up after
Yes.
your dog because kids play there. It's their health at risk. So I just wanted to point that out to see if we can maybe add more signage,
Okay.
make it more visible, maybe in big letters, maybe a banner, whatever it is. I'll pay for it. I don't have a problem. It's ridiculous. I get frustrated walking in the park because I cannot take 2 steps without
No,
stepping
I
into
understand.
something.
I
So
have
it's
dogs. I
frustrating.
pick up after my dogs, and I get frustrated when other people don't too.
I
So-
pick up after the dogs that the people that don't pick up after the dogs. So that's my job every day. It's ridiculous. And every time bending, I'm getting old. I cannot keep bending every time. But I just wanted to present that. I apologize for making it gross. But. Any other comments? Okay, all right. Thank you for the
Sure thing.
presentation. All right, moving on. Item 11, Superintendent's Report, Dr. Fuentes.
Thank you. I just have really not much to report since we just recently met. I just want to again extend, a happy holiday to our Berryessa community, wishing everyone, a safe and restful break. Our students' last day will be next Thursday on the 21st. Our district office will be closed for that first week and reopen right after the new year. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Any comments and announcements from the board? I have a couple of things to say. First, to thank Councilmember Cohen's office for providing us with those grants. If there are schools that do need grants, maybe make them aware. If they don't know already, make them aware of the availability of those grants. And if the schools don't need it, maybe the PTAs do. Please spread the word if anybody can utilize those grants. The other thing was I just wanted to thank the board for letting me serve as a president for this the school year. It's a privilege and honor for me because 29 years ago, when I arrived in the United States, I would have never dreamed of being in this position. I knew that community services is in my blood because my parents, grandparents, they were always all community service members. So I knew I was going to do something like that, but sitting here, having the privilege of sitting here, would not have been in my list at all. So I thank you for the trust, and I feel honored to be representing the board as a board president for this school year. And the last thing I wanted to say is after the budget stabilization presentation last week, I had some chance to reflect upon some of the data and the comments that were made. There was a lot of information that was given to the board, a lot of heavy discussions went on, and I'm sure they made a lot of comments during that presentation. But just wanted to clarify that there's no one up here who's advocating for any of those things, like any of the layoffs or the school consolidations. We are not advocating for that at all. It's all within the context of the data that was presented to us. So it was kind of bothering me that we were having a lot of those comments and discussions back and forth, but none of them that meant that we are in favor of doing anything like that. We just want to try to see what are our options, and within the context of the data presented, what are the options that might work. That was the only point that we were trying to make. That was the only thing I wanted to share. So thank you. All right. Moving forward to review and discussion. Anything there? Okay. Any public hearings? I don't see any public hearings. Item 15, review and action. Item A. Item A is naming the board representative for the Santa Clara County Committee 2024 election.
Yes, thank you, President Srinivasan. And this refers back to what I had mentioned earlier in the meeting. It is recommended to the board to select a board member to vote in the 2024 election for members of the Santa Clara County Committee on School District Organization. Your current representative has been Trustee Hugo Jimenez, who has expressed interest in continuing unless another trustee would like to take on that role.
Trustee Jimenez, would you like to continue in that position?
Yeah, and this is basically to vote, to select the person who will be part of the committee. So it's a vote to vote for the person who will then vote on any, basically, school district boundaries and et cetera. Yeah.
Thank you. Is there a motion to appoint Trustee Jimenez to this position?
I'll move to select Trustee Jimenez to continue serving this position.
I'll second it.
Thank you. It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor will say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries 4-0. Thank you. Next item, business services. Public hearing disclosure of the California, of the CSEA collective bargaining MOU, sorry, what did I say? Public hearing disclosure of the CSEA Chapter 364 Collective Bargaining Memorandum of Understanding and Berryessa Union School District. Dr. Fuentes.
Thank you. It is recommended that the board first conduct a public hearing on the disclosure of CSEA's Chapter 364 Collective Bargaining MOU, and then second, accept the certified disclosure of the California School Employees Association and its Chapter 364 Collective Bargaining Memorandum of Understanding from the Santa Clara County Office of Education.
Thank you. Sorry. So we'll open the public hearing. Any comments from the general public? Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing. And the second one needs a motion, correct, to accept the certified disclosure.
I move for acceptance.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries 4-0. Next item is for the 2023-24 first interim budget stabilization plan and presentation. Dr. Fuentes.
It is recommended the board approve the 2023-2024 first interim report and budget stabilization plan and the district's positive certification of fiscal solvency. Prior to that motion, we do have a presentation here from Kevin Franklin, our Assistant Superintendent of Business.
Hey, good evening once again. So the first interim is using data as of October 31st, 2023. So by the time we end up presenting, we usually have new information. So it kind of makes some of this outdated. So I will point that out when we come to some of those slides. But essentially, this is the first update of our budget out of two. We update again in March at the second interim. And then again, when we do our estimated actuals with the budget. So I already went over the enrollment and the separate presentation, but this is another graph of that with the ADA. You can see the ADA is funded ADA. And so you can see how that kind of spiked when we had some hold harmless years. And so you can see just the corresponding dips that have corresponded with our enrollment declining and decreasing over the last 10 plus years. You can see too in 22-23 we had a little bit of a bigger gap and a lower 88 percentage, and that was due to COVID and a lot of the absences we were experiencing. But we're projecting that to not be as significant and be back at the levels that we were at prior to the pandemic. And we've used that to project out over the next 2 years. So these are our budget assumptions that we're currently using. So again, I mentioned that we updated the enrollment. Our enrollment is now back up over 6,000. We were originally projecting less than 6,000 students, and we've updated the corresponding ADA for what we project our ADA to be at P2 submission, which is in the springtime, and that's what we're funded based off of. We assume 1.5% in step and column increases for our certificated and classified salaries. STRS employer contribution rate is staying constant at 19.10. The PERS employer rate was, when we developed these figures right here. However, a report came out last week that those estimates are changing and they're going up by, I want to say, I think it's 0.1% next year, and then by about 0.5% in 25-26. So we will make that adjustment in the second interim once those are all finalized. COLA is 8.22% this year. That's not changing. Where you'll see a difference is we are currently utilizing 3.94% as COLA for next year. And about a week and a half ago, the Legislative Analyst's Office came out with an update for the projected COLA, and the projected COLA is now projected to be 1.27%. The third year, 25-26, is projected to be 3%. So we have a significant drop in COLA projected for next year that we'll have to make adjustments for in the second interim, and then about a 0.25% decrease in 25-26, and that adjustment will follow as well.
Kevin, can you please share with the board that drop in COLA? What is the equivalent in our funding for that loss?
So the equivalence in funding for that percentage drop for 24-25 is 1.82 million, and then another 1.82 million corresponding in 25-26. So right now we don't have that revised figure because in the budget, because we don't know what the governor is currently going to do to address the shortfall. But one of the other factors at play right now is that state revenues are currently $26 billion lower than what was projected at the governor's enacted budget back in June. So again, if you recall, the state ended up pushing out the tax deadline, and the tax deadline we just passed it November 15th. And so the tax receipts ended up being lower than projected. And I want to say even back in October or early October, they were still projecting that they looked like they were going to come close to meeting that number. But what it's turned out to be is a over $60 billion shortfall over last year through next year. So again, that's going to play into how much funding the governor has to currently fund schools and to fund Prop 98. And so that's in addition to the COLA adjustment that is currently projected to happen. So one of the questions too is why is the COLA 1.27%? So there's 8 data points that are used to calculate the COLA, and they're every quarter. And so they have most of the data points to calculate next year's COLA. There's the last data points that they'll have in the spring. But essentially what's happening is that while the cost of goods is still high, the cost of goods relative to 1 year ago is relatively flat. And that's why the 1.27% COLA is what it is. And so I think one of the areas that you can see that is with gas. So a year ago, the cost of gas compared to right now, I think right now just down the street, it was about $3.95. So it was under $4 at the Costco gas station. So when you actually think about and compare to what the price of gas was a year ago, there's not that actually much of a change. There might even be a decrease. And so it's factors such as that are leading to this 1.27% revision in COLA, just because the cost of goods has not significantly increased year over year like was projected. So we've seen inflation slow down. And so with the slowdown of inflation, we also have the lowering of the projected COLAs. So does that make sense? I think sometimes too, what gets confused is the amount of tax revenues received and how that impacts the COLA. The way that the tax revenue receipts impact COLA is that the governor has to have and the state have to have enough money to fund the COLA. And so that's where the tax receipts come into play, because if there's not enough tax revenues within the state, the COLA might not be able to be fully funded. So there's a bunch of options that the governor has. There's rainy day funds. There's, the Prop 98 reserve fund. And so we have to wait and see how the governor decides to address this shortfall. Some of the talk too has been to take back some of the one-time dollars that are owed to districts. But again, we have to wait and see what those proposals are in January. We'll know those by January 10th. And so then those will be then incorporated into the second interim. So keep that in mind as we go through the rest of the presentation, because we are currently projecting everything based off of a higher COLA at this moment. These are the projected general fund revenues as of the first interim. So again, we experienced this increase in enrollment, which corresponds to an increase in ADA, which is great, and it's very helpful for the district. However, it does not help us in the current year. The reason being that the district is funded based off of average of our ADA from the 3 prior years. So we have an increase in the current year. The current year is currently not factored into the calculation of our revenues for 23-24, but it does impact 24-25 and 25-26. So we've correspondingly adjusted those revenues up as a result of the adjustment to the 3-year average. Hopefully that makes sense. So that's why there's not an adjustment to our current year LCFF revenues. There may be a slight adjustment at the second interim for supplemental dollars, but we have to actually wait and see what our CalPADS data reflects for our unduplicated count and what that percentage is. And so we'll have that by second interim, and we'll update the supplemental dollars at that time, but it won't be a significant increase. There was a slight increase in federal revenues, but not very significant. Where we saw a little bit of an increase was in our state revenues, and that was funds for the summer employee summer assistance program that our classified staff is able to participate in. And so essentially that's dollars and revenues that come in that we end up then just paying right out. And it's just a pass through of dollars to our employees for participating in that program. And it's a dollar for dollar match with the state. The employees set aside $1 out of their paychecks for every dollar that they set aside to be paid out later. The state matches in the summer. So it's a benefit for our classified employees. There was an adjustment of $612 increase in our local revenue, and a lot of that was due to funding from the E-rate program and E-rate reimbursements that we received this year for technology. Okay. General fund expenditures for first interim for 23-24. So we had some slight adjustments in our salaries and benefits. Some of those are based on the salary settlements that we have currently reached with some of our union partners. And then we had some increases in our books and supplies due to utilizing some of our restricted lottery funds and donations. And then we also had an increase in our services and operating expenses. Some of those are because we're having to contract out services for hard to fill positions and other after-school based program. You remember we have ELOP funding. We're currently trying to utilize and maximize that funding. Some of it was carryover, so we have additional expenditures that we have budgeted for on the restricted side that accounts for a lot of that increase. Capital outlay has been adjusted for just some of our projects that we thought we were going to complete in the current year, and those have been pushed out into next year just based on when those projects will be completed. So those expenditures are not reflected anymore in the current year budget. They'll be reflected in 24-25. So our multi-year projections. So what I want to make sure that I mention in our multi-year projection is that our expenditures for 24-25 and 25-26 include the reductions as recommended by the stabilization plan and by the committee. And so those reductions are included to meet those expenditures there that you see in 24-25 and 25-26. So the net result in those 2 years is reduced deficit spending on the unrestricted general fund side. We still have restricted deficit spending that's on purpose, that's spending down restricted one-time dollars, and then that will level off. So Hopefully that makes sense. Those expenditure reductions are included in there, and they're included along with Fund 17 to meet our 3% reserve requirement. If we do not have those expenditure reductions included in the budget, we would not have a positive certification. We would not be able to meet the 3% reserve requirement, and we would have a negative fund balance. So on the restricted side, as you can see, we are deficit spending still in the current year, about $2.6 million. So you see our beginning fund balance in the general fund go down from 3 million to about 400,000. However, we do have a healthy enough fund balance in Fund 17. And so we're able to meet our 3% reserve requirement. The reserve calculation includes Fund 17 in calculating it to meet the 3%. So we do utilize Fund 17 in all 3 years. So again, as I mentioned, we have the expenditure reductions on the unrestricted general fund side included in the budget, and that's where you can see that the deficit spending has been eliminated for next year and for 25-26. However, we do not have that $1.8 million loss in revenue and corresponding expenditures that I just mentioned in regard to the drop in the COLA included in this. So it's quite possible, based on what the governor's January budget is, that we will have to make additional expenditure reductions in the second interim to continue to meet our 3% reserve requirement and to keep our positive certification. So again, we're certifying positive, and the main and most important thing is that we analyze the governor's budget. Hopefully it's favorable. I don't know how he's going to move around the state revenues to fully fund education as he had promised in his enacted budget 6 months ago. But essentially the economy within the state has greatly changed and shifted over the past 6 months, and specifically over the past 2 or 3 months. And that has kind of led to where we're at now and needing to potentially commit to subsequent expenditure reductions to meet our 3%. Any questions about the interim?
Any questions from the board? Can you please explain one more time the multi-year projection, how the drop in the COLA will change those, would likely change those numbers at the
Yes.
slide
So
8, I think. Yeah. This one. Yeah.
Right.
Just wanted to get a rough picture of what those numbers will look like.
Right. So essentially, we would have about a $1.83 million drop in our unrestricted revenues for 24-25. So that 63.3 million would drop by 1.8 million. So that net result that you see there, a positive 36,481, would turn into a negative 1.8 million deficit spend for next year. And then that would correspondingly also move into the third year. So we would have a negative, or we would be deficit spending in those 2 years, and we would not have a positive ending fund balance. We would probably have a positive ending fund balance at least for 24-25 because of Fund 17, but we don't have enough revenue in Fund 17 to meet 3%. There's about $2.8 million, I believe, sitting in Fund 17. So we would only have about $1 million counted towards our 3%. 3%'s just shy of $3 million next year.
Thank you. And also to put things in perspective with the STIRS and the PERS employer contribution, I know, I'm sorry, I'm asking you to go back to that
Okay.
Chart over there with the budget assumptions. So historically, just for perspective sake, because we are only saying this year and out years, how have the contribution rates been since maybe in the past 5 years? How much has it increased?
So I think in the past about 8 years or so, all of them have almost doubled. So STIRS used to be around 10% employer contribution, and PERS was I think around 14 or 12. And so they've all of them have increased and almost doubled over the past 7 to 8 years. And,
think that
and PERS
puts-
actually, we don't have it reflected on this chart,
Mhm.
but in 26, 27, 27, 28, the rate is over 30%.
Oh, wow. I think that puts undue pressure on many of the smaller school districts. I think we're not unique to that challenge. I know, but
I think to add to your questions, that those are also key areas for advocacy, right? In terms of as the governor gets ready to present his budget in January, we know that there will be lots of advocacy done between January and May when the May revision comes out. And certainly for public education, there's several critical areas in the current governor's budget. There is intent language for additional funding, like to support us with different initiatives that the governor has put out for us to do, like expanded TK and ELOP, et cetera. So wanting to ensure that that intent language continues to move forward. You know, we had intent language with learning recovery money that they took back this year, and with the intention that they may give back in the future. So reminding the legislature of that intention to provide funds that they gave and then took away and said they would give back. In addition to that is revisiting the STIRS and PERS. In years past, school districts have received an allocation of support from the legislature for those areas. We've not received that in several years. And then also just looking at, you know, the state prioritizing public education, right? And making sure that all of the initiatives the governor has put forth that we all have implemented can be sustained. And we know that there's also continues to always be additional need that we have. And so again, it pushes for that revisit of the formula and how we are funded overall, you know, across the state. Because we have a lot of disparity in public education between community funded districts and state funded districts like ours, and also depending on the demographics that we serve.
And again, that's a good reminder about the intent language because, you know, I mentioned at the special board meeting last week that, you know, the one-time dollars that the governor ended up approving for schools over during the whole COVID period were recommended to be utilized differently than ever before. So utilizing those funds to help keep staffing levels the same and to increase staffing levels and to increase services, and then to have those taken away and then given back to us with intent language that we cannot use in our budgets. That's where a lot of these shortfalls are coming from. And that's where you have a lot of school districts now struggling and having to look at staffing reductions a lot sooner than planned for, because, you know, a lot of districts had those budgeted and had those dollars in their multi-year projections funding staff, which is not usually ever recommended that you fund ongoing staff with one-time dollars. And so having those funds taken away and now having the threat of even some of the intent language to help soften some of this and soften these reductions potentially in the future, you know, they're just putting a lot of school districts into tight situations. And, you know, where we all still have needs that our students have, but we're not going to be able to fund those staff anymore because we don't have those revenues. And so, you know, a lot of this is coming up a lot sooner because, you know, if you remember when the governor's budget originally came out this past year, it was a huge reduction to our one-time funds, cutting them almost in half to the tune of like $4 to $5 million. With the intent language, I think we were scheduled to get back over the next couple of years about $1 million, which you can see would be very helpful for our budget, but we can't count on that and we can't utilize that in our multi-year projections. And now with the way the state's budget is looking, it's looking more and more like we won't even receive those dollars in the future. So that's kind of how we got to this situation right now.
I agree, and thank you for that. And I think one other area for advocacy for I hear, and just trying to recollect my notes from this, the dynamic COLA, right? I mean, because the COLA is applied throughout the state from end to end, but it doesn't match the actual cost of living per region. And I think there were some school districts or county board of education in different areas that were talking about having a dynamic COLA. Over here in Silicon Valley, the cost of living is much higher than maybe somewhere in a rural area in California. So having the same amount of COLA doesn't make sense. I think that's also something that should be pursued by the elected officials to try to convince. But thank you for that presentation. Really appreciate it. Thank you. Perfect. Next item on the list.
You
is-
need to, we need a motion
Oops,
and a second to approve.
Oh, yep, I missed that. Thank you for the reminder. Is there a motion to approve the 2023-24 first interim report, budget stabilization plan, and the district's positive certification of fiscal solvency? Is there a second? Oh, thank you. It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor will say aye. Aye. Motion passes 4-0. Next item on the list is board policy 1330, use of school facilities. Dr. Fuentes.
It is recommended the board review and approve Board Policy 1330, use of school facilities for a first reading. And this policy is just an update on two items. First, just an updated language that the board is authorized to utilize school buildings as voting centers on Election Day, as well as 10 days prior to the election. In addition, for any other key dates that may be needed to drop off, set up, or pick up election materials. In addition to that, there was a recent Supreme Court decision that reminded school districts that when charging religious groups direct costs for use of facilities, we need to be sure those costs are on par with what we charge other similar types of organizations.
Okay, thank you. Is there a motion to review and approve board policy 1330?
I'll second it.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. All those in favor will say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries 4-0. Next item is Bottom Line Utility Solutions, Inc., agreement to replace select bathroom fixtures using the Valley Water Fixture Replacement Program grant. Dr. Fuentes.
It is recommended the board approve Bottom Line Utility Solutions, Inc. agreement for the replacement of select bathroom fixtures at all school sites using the Valley Water Fixture Replacement Program grant.
Perfect. Thank you. Is there a motion to approve this agreement?
Move to approve.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. All those in favor will say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries 4-0. Thank you so much. Item C, under Human Resources, we have approval of the tentative agreement between CSEA Chapter 364 and Berryessa Union School District. Dr. Fuentes.
It is recommended the board approve the contract language changes in the tentative agreements with California School Employees Association, Chapter 364. We also thank them for their partnership in reaching this agreement.
Thank you. Is there any comment? Is there a motion to approve?
I'll move to approve, and also I want to say thank you to CSEA, and thank you for your partnership, and thank you for the work that your employees do.
I'll second that.
It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor will say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries 4-0. Thank you. Next item is MOU between Berryessa Union School District and Teamsters Local 150 regarding the 2023-24 reopeners Article 8.1.
It is recommended the board adopt the memorandum of understanding between Berryessa Union and Teamsters Local 150 regarding 23-24 reopeners, Article 8.1. And again, we'd like to thank our Teamsters unit, Local 150, for working closely with us on this MOU.
Thank you. Are there any comments, any motions on this?
Move to approve.
Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. All those in favor will say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries 4-0. Thank you. Next item under education services. Item 1 is 7th grade comprehensive sex education curriculum presentation and recommended adoption of health connected agreements. Dr. Fuentes.
It is recommended the board approve the adoption of the health connected agreements for the comprehensive sex education curriculum for our 7th graders. And we do have a presentation this evening to share with the board more about the process regarding this curriculum adoption by Nicole Paredes, our Director of Curriculum and Instruction.
Good evening once again. The purpose of this evening's presentation is to update the board and the community on the 7th grade comprehensive sex education curriculum selection process, timeline, and the recommendation. It's important to understand the journey that Berryessa Union has been on with this work. And so I'll take us back to January 2016 when CHAYA, which stands for the California Healthy Youth Act, required school districts to provide students with comprehensive sexual health education at least once in high school and once in middle school. And from that requirement, Berryessa established in spring 2017 the Healthy Youth Task Force that served to advise on the selection of curriculum for middle school and elementary. Middle school adoption was prioritized at that time. In 2019, the Health Education Curriculum Framework for California Public Schools was approved. And in that spring, there was a review and selection process for 7th grade comprehensive sex ed curriculum. And community participation and transparency was paramount in that process and really set the stage for all of the work to come. And so not being here at that time, I certainly want to acknowledge and appreciate all of that work that happened as it laid the foundation for the work we engaged in most recently. So in the spring of 2019, there were numerous information meetings. Teachers, parents, administrators, and community members were all involved. The curriculum was available for review at the district office. The group really worked to take the curriculum, which was Positive Prevention Plus, and worked really hard to make adaptations that addressed the teacher and parent concerns of that time and the feedback that they received. Of course, for any parents and caregivers that want to opt their child out, there is an alternate curriculum that was developed and is provided. Numerous information sessions for parents on how to initiate those difficult conversations, both for parents and teachers. And there was extensive teacher training on the Positive Prevention Plus curriculum. And then we all faced the challenges of COVID. So in spring 2020, there was a pivot from using the adapted version of Positive Prevention Plus that's fondly referred to as the Berryessa version. And due to the pandemic, the shift went to using the online curriculum that Positive Prevention Plus provided, and Nearpod presentations were created to support teachers. Teachers were trained in how to use those resources, and of course, parent sessions were provided. Looking to spring 2021, the following year, continued with teacher training and parent information sessions, and moved forward with finally implementing Positive Prevention Plus with the adaptations that were created in the previous years, and the BUSD version was implemented. Last school year, the Berryessa version with those adaptations, it became apparent that they needed updates, and some of the resources that had been pulled in to support that version of the curriculum were no longer accessible. And so it was very challenging and cumbersome for teachers to use the pieces that had been pulled together, and some of them were not available. So I moved forward and held a meeting with all of the 7th grade science teachers, really to talk about our options and next steps for what we wanted to do last school year. And based on the feedback from the 7th grade science teachers, the decision was to move forward and implement the BUSD version again last year, with the understanding and agreement that we would engage in a full curriculum review process for this school year. So we did that. And in spring of 2023, last year, we had teacher representatives, middle school science teachers, that engaged in a process to review several curriculum. There were 4 different curriculum that we reviewed, and they narrowed it down to 2. And they were Positive Prevention Plus, the newer version, and Teen Talk, which is by Health Connected. And then this fall, we expanded that curriculum review committee to include teacher representatives as well as parent caregiver representatives. And we engaged in a full curriculum review process with very clear and established criteria. And the goal was to come to consensus on a program that we could recommend for adoption. And this was the timeline that we used to engage in that work, which I just described to you. We started in March through May and reviewed the initial set of curriculum and narrowed it down. This October and November, we expanded that committee and did the full review of the 2 options that were identified. Here we are in December with the recommendation to you for adoption, and pending approval, we will move forward in January to order materials, train the staff, and implement the program. I want to highlight and acknowledge and extend my deep gratitude for this small but mighty review committee. We had 3 amazing middle school science teachers who committed to this process. We had a parent and a grandparent who were fully engaged and supportive of our work. One of our instructional coaches, and I was on the committee as well. And all of this work was guided by our consultant who Berryessa has worked with for numerous years, Heidi Winnig from Cardia Services. And she really is an expert in the work related to comprehensive sex ed and facilitating these processes. So the curriculum that the committee reviewed, as I shared, was Teen Talk by Health Connected and Positive Prevention Plus. The considerations and the criteria that we utilized really aligned to these critical questions. Are the teaching methods and levels of information a fit for 7th grade students in Berryessa? Does the curriculum incorporate social emotional learning? Does the curriculum meet the needs of diverse learning abilities and styles? Does the curriculum support opportunities for active engagement between students, their parents and caregivers, and or a trusted adult, whoever that may be? Are the lesson materials unbiased and inclusive? And are there options for teacher training and support? And I should mention, on the committee of those 3 teachers, we had both general ed and special education middle school science teachers. So the process we engaged in with our review committee, we had 2 meetings between October and November. We did an overview of the process, made sure everybody understood the requirements under CHIA, the California Healthy Youth Act, and what the selection criteria would consist of. We did an overview of each curriculum, followed by individual review where they rated it based on the criteria that we had set forward. Then we engaged in a collaborative review of the data and the ratings, and we compared the curriculum. And finally, we went through a process of consensus building in order to come to a decision on a program to recommend. So the consensus building process, after laying out all the criteria and reviewing, we did an initial straw poll, and you can see here that of the 5 people on the committee, I was not a voting member. Our instructional coach was not a voting member, nor was our consultant. It was the teachers and the family representatives. There was one person, the 20% for Positive Prevention Plus, that had concerns that needed to be addressed before they could support that the moving forward with that recommendation. And you can see with Teen Talk, everybody was fully and strongly in support, and or I can support this decision. So we engaged in what I would call robust discussion on the strengths and weaknesses related to each program, to really understand the concerns and what people really valued with each program. And then we engaged in a vote. And the question was, which program is your first choice? 4 out of 5 said Teen Talk Health Connected was their first choice. And so given that Teen Talk didn't have anybody that said they couldn't support it, and the vote showed the majority voted for that. Then we engaged in the FIST to 5 consensus protocol. And the determination around consensus is if you're a 3 or higher, that indicates consensus. And I'm really pleased to share that of our 5 members, 4 of them said they were a 5 and 1 said they were a 4. So very strong support for Teen Talk by Health Connected. And so it was a unanimous consensus to recommend to you this evening the adoption of Teen Talk. There are 12 lesson topics that are organized into chapters or chapters, and they all meet the requirements of CHIA. And so those are the topics that are covered, not different than what is covered in Positive Prevention Plus. The curriculums are designed to make sure they address the required topics. Parent engagement, very, very important, as we know. And so per CHIA, which is the California Healthy Youth Act, we will and we do provide parents with very specific information about what will be taught within the comp sex ed curriculum. We will hold parent information sessions and provide parents with access to the curriculum for their review prior to it being implemented. Parents and caregivers, of course, have the right to opt their child out of some or all of the lessons, and we will send a letter to them explaining that process, making sure they know the scope and sequence and what will be taught, and if they decide to opt their child out, how they go about doing that. And for families that do decide to opt their child out, we provide an alternate health and wellness curriculum that they work through while their peers are receiving the comp sex ed curriculum. So our next steps in this process, pending your approval, we will order the materials. We've designated March, possibly April, but I'm leaning towards March for the professional development for the teachers. We have already on the calendar parent information sessions that will be held in March, and the letter to parents regarding those sessions and the opt-out information. And May, possibly June, but more than likely all in May, our middle schools will provide comp sex ed instruction for 7th grade. Our school sites select the specific dates around the activities that they have planned in May. I want to acknowledge our curriculum review committee members. This list includes teachers and our parent and grandparent, and then our instructional coach, Nandini Paul, and Heidi Winnig once again for supporting our work. Any comments or questions?
How long does the unit take to teach the students?
The publisher says 1 period, but we looked through it really carefully. I met with the teachers just this week, and we think most of them will take 1 period. Some of them may take 2. And so we're looking at 3 weeks total instruction. And we established a recommended pacing, but teachers will do what works for them. But 1 to 2 per lesson, mostly 1.
And it's in science class?
It is in
Okay.
science class, yes.
Any other comments? I had a question. Yeah, you okay?
Yeah, I am. I don't know why I did
Yeah.
that.
You mentioned
Sorry.
at the start of the presentation, you did mention elementary schools. Is there anything changing at the elementary schools? Or
Nothing
this
changing
is
for
still the same?
elementary. Last year, I brought forward Positive Prevention Plus for our 5th grade, and that is what they're using. No changes to that. I may be coming back to you because they're updating the curriculum, and so I just want to update you on that when that happens. But for this year, no change.
And just curious about the committee. There was only 1 parent and 1 grandparent. Was it when that was all that's needed, or only those 2 volunteered?
I put it out district-wide more than once.
Wow. Okay.
And I know that several of the teachers also put it forward. And we initially had a meeting scheduled in September, and I had 1 other parent that was available in September but wasn't available in the October date. I couldn't move forward with the September, and they said, please just move forward. So, but we did put it out to everybody, all middle school families.
Yeah, I was just hoping for more participation.
Yeah.
I was a part of the task force way back when we were starting to talk about it. So, and we had a room full of parents asking questions, which was
Yeah.
so I was a little surprised when I saw only 2 community members on the committee. I just wanted to mention this because I was in the same situation. We have a lot of immigrant families in this area. I'm one of them, and we didn't grow up learning about this in schools. So some of these things come as a surprise. What is the teacher talking about? And I just wanted to, mention that we should, when we communicate, talk to the parents about it, empathize with them, understand where they're coming from, because they might be shocked, truly shocked to look at some of the information that is available here, because there are cultural differences. And I want to acknowledge my middle school principal. I know he's in the room. I can see him in the back for sitting with me and and talking to me about it, and along with the science teacher explaining to me, don't be alarmed. This is nothing that's the kids don't know already, or so it's better they know the right thing than learning it the wrong way. So, but I just wanted to still emphasize that, when we do communicate or interact with the parents, let's act with some amount of empathy to understand that they don't come learning about these things. Some of these topics are pretty heavy. So I just want to request that.
Absolutely. Yes. Thank you.
Thank you for the presentation. Perfect. All right. Is there a motion to approve the adoption of the health connected agreements for the comprehensive sex education curriculum?
I move to approve.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. All those in favor will say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries 4-0. Thank you so much. Moving on to the next item, school plan for student achievement 2023-24 school site plans. Dr. Fuentes.
It is recommended the board approve the 2023-2024 school plans for student achievement for all of our 13 schools. Prior to taking your motion, we will have a brief presentation. As you know, we have our LCAP, which leads the work in our district, and our school SIPSA plans follow in alignment with the 3 goals that we've established. So we have a goal in ensuring a positive learning environment. We have a goal on improving our academic achievement for our students, as well as increasing parent and community engagement. So I know this evening, Dr. McCreary will introduce some of our principals who will be sharing with you some elements that they have in their plans that they are working towards with their school communities.
Okay, real quickly, I'm just going to read the purpose of school plans. Excuse me. Documents that represent a school cycle of continuous improvement for student achievement. The annual process of developing, reviewing, and updating the SIPSAs includes a comprehensive review of data, which we work on with our principals. Also, developing actions that are necessary to achieve these goals. The plan also addresses funding, proposed expenditures related to state and federal categorical programs. And then, of course, each year, the school site council and the local governing board approve the SIPSAs for each school. So with that in mind, our goal number 1 is ensuring a productive learning environment that promotes wellness and positive school culture for all students. And we have Dr. Samantha Rayner, who's going to talk about what they do at Summerdale Elementary School.
Good evening. How are you? So I will start with our second bullet. So last year at Summerdale in the 22-23 school year in January, we had a PBIS walkthrough. So they used the tiered for fidelity walkthrough tool. And so that walkthrough, we scored a 91%. And so that communicated to us that our tier 1 strategies and supports from our PBIS program was very strong. And so that moved us into what we thought we were, going to apply for an award. But they came back and said, how about participating in this 2-year grant, which will strengthen your tier 2 and possibly your tier 3 behavior supports in the school. So with that being said, we are in year 1. And so we are, part of this grant is looking at our MTSS and PBIS evidence-based practice and data for equity practices for the whole, that serves the whole child. And in that, our staff is embracing the culturally relevant and sustaining practices and competencies, as well as looking at the social and emotional awareness, as well as trauma-informed practices. And so with that, our MTSS PBIS team had a 2.5-day training with the County of Ed. And in that training, that team selected 6 modules or 5 modules for our staff to be trained in throughout the year. The first training took place at our October staff meeting on culturally sustaining and practices, culturally relevant and sustaining practices. And with those module trainings, teachers are encouraged to do follow-up activities with their students. And also part of that work is inviting our school community, our families, to also dig deeper into their cultural practices within their own family units. And so they selected 5 more modules. Our second module training took place this month on planned praises. So it's taking some of those negative behaviors we see and how can we turn them into positive praises, and being very specific in that praise. And so we'll continue to have these trainings throughout the year. There's a coaching piece that's embedded in that. So it's a big undertaking, and it's allowing us to strengthen our MTSS and PBIS teams, and which then leads into the other bullet, the top bullet, which our Tier 2 check-in, check-out program is another piece of our PBIS program at Summerdale that is pretty strong. We have check-in, check-out coordinators that meet probably bi-monthly to do check-ins as a team to see how our students who are part of that program is working. And in that program, students who need more support are provided with the mentors, usually our teaching staff, my secretary, my clerk are also mentors. Anyone that the student can see consistently. They set behavior goals. They check in the morning. They check in the afternoon. And there are incentives that are part of that program to keep the students engaged and motivated, but changing that behavior, the negative behavior, into more positive behavior. And it has been very successful. And we do acknowledge and celebrate our students with a check-in, check-out breakfast that our social worker, Mr. Hasware, cooks for everyone, our mentors and mentees. And so it's a program that I'm very proud that Summerdale has because it gives us that next level to support our students with behavior. And then our third bullet, our social worker is has been doing for the last couple of years with our 3rd through 5th grade students who tend to have a little bit more, more work to do, to have more work around with the social behaviors. And so forming those social groups at lunch is something that he does and does very well. And that interaction with each other helps them to be able to communicate better with each other, especially when there aren't a lot of adults around. So that's some of the things that Summerdale is doing, and we're deepening the work as we move along.
Thank you, Dr. Rayner. I also just want to say, I think what's really critical to the work that they're doing with PBIS is we know consistency, especially for our younger children in elementary, having consistency regarding, student expectations and what is that climate that we want for our school? How do we want students to feel, not just in the classroom, but, how should they be when they're in the cafeteria, when they're out in the playground? Having, staff model that behavior for them, as well as, mentoring them and guiding them to make better decisions. I just want to commend you and your staff for taking the time to really dig in and have those conversations so that across your school, everybody knows like how it is to be a Summerdale star, and that, that's what they want to thrive to do too.
Thank you.
All right. Moving on to goal number 2, improving student achievement for all students by providing Common Core state standards instruction with the strategic use of technology and providing professional development for all staff. And we have Miss Tina Tong Choi from Cherrywood Elementary.
Good evening, trustees and executive board. I'd just like to highlight some of the programming that we have going on. And first, we like to provide engaging resources. And we've really expanded kind of beyond just using the technology and really encouraging students to utilize it further. So for example, for Accelerated Reader, we've developed a program where they're using the computer program, but we've also developed 9 milestones that students can reach. And just last Friday, we had our first AR assembly of the year, and we were able to award 412 milestone prizes to students. So it's really about getting students to read more, enjoy reading. Also, we've been able to utilize our level learning program. So this is a program that our Mandarin immersion students use, and it helps teachers be able to know what reading level they're at and students, and also they're able to students are able to expose themselves to many different reading resources that we don't necessarily have in our libraries. So it's really expanded the learning opportunities for them there. Also, parents are able to get reports to see what kind of learning is happening, especially in the area of reading. Also, for Imagine Learning, our students have been utilizing that, and this fall, one of our third grade classes was recognized for the National Ready, Set, Solve program, and they were one of 5 schools in Northern California to receive that award. As far as professional development goes, the latest professional development that the staff has been involved in is going to the National Chinese Learning Conference and also CABE. And once again, our teachers have been very involved in this professional development because they don't only attend the conferences, they have presented. And 9 out of our 10 Mandarin immersion teachers so far have presented at either one of those conferences. And as we expand and take in the professional learning, today I was notified that we will also be a site for professional learning for the National Chinese Language Conference this coming May. We are going to be a host site, and that means we'll have 20 to 30 teachers, administrators traveling from across the country, even some international educators who will have the opportunity to come and see the programming that is happening at Cherrywood. So very excited that professional development happens both ways at Cherrywood. As far as our library collection, that also is related to just the global competency learning that we've been really trying to strive for as a school. And so as different programming is happening, such as Diwali, such as Hispanic Heritage Month, Lunar New Year, our librarian also has done a great job expanding our multicultural book collection as well as our bilingual collection. So the students in that picture during Diwali, they weren't only reading stories, but she also provides opportunities for them to expand their reading by doing activities. They happen to fold origami dias in that picture. So students are very engaged in checking out different literature as well as being provided that literature. And also, we've really benefited from Dr. Nikki's Strategy Keepers training. So over half of our staff has participated in that professional development. And last year we had 8 staff members actually go through the year-long training. So our staff is very well trained. And so we have spent resources on trying to bring that to our students, bring that to our parents. At Parent Coffees, we've been able to provide literature that parents can use at home to continue the strategies with their students and continue the same language. Also, our teachers have been able to purchase, we've been able to purchase things like breathing buddies, breathing balls, literature also to help support that learning. And we've definitely seen an increase in just students being more mindful, both in the classroom and outside of the classroom. And then as far as instructional rounds and demonstration lessons, I think we've really been able to benefit from demonstration lessons and teachers being able to go into each other's classrooms. So as we have a different learning model at Cherrywood, teachers really need to be collaborative. They need to know what's going on in each other's classrooms. And so we have set aside funds so that they have the time to do that. And we also have been able to utilize our instructional coach to continue the learning after the demonstration lessons so that new strategies can be implemented, new ways of organizing classrooms and curriculum can truly be utilized and sustainable. So those are some of the things that are happening, and I'm proud to say that Cherrywood continues to grow academically and also just helping our students be effective global citizens. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Again, I just want to thank Principal Choi and her entire staff at Cherrywood for all of this work that they've done to support both their Mandarin program as well as their students who are not in the Mandarin program, and making sure they have equal access to learning all of the cultural richness that Chinese culture brings. I think they've worked hard at that, and also just their multicultural work. I know they've been host to Ruby Bridges events year after year, and that's also another opportunity to engage the students as well as their community. So thank you for that work. And congratulations.
Okay, moving ahead to goal number 3, increasing parent and community involvement in education. And we have Ms. Tuia Burrows from Laneview Elementary School, who's going to talk about what's going on at Laneview.
Good evening. How's everyone doing this evening? So I'm happy to be here to talk about rebuilding community involvement after COVID, right, with parents and the larger community. So what we've been doing at Laneview is we are bringing back what they had before, right, before everything got shut down. So we're having our Seal Gallery walks. If you have time, we're having our first grade one Tuesday. I think it's at 1:30. I can let you know the time if you're able to come and participate in that. We're going to have Avid showcases. So Avid at elementary is 4th and 5th grade. So they're going to start having those events for parents to come in. And then having our parent workshop. So we surveyed the parents for some ideas. So when we come back in January, the first one that we're going to have is going to be about school reluctance, because, you know, that's a real thing, why some students are scared to come to school. So we need to kind of address how can parents address that issue with their children. So having parent socials. So in the one little picture there, that was our first day of school, parent breakfast. So being able to provide those opportunities for parents to come and have conversations with other people at school, other parents and larger school staff and community, so that they're able to just have those conversations. And last year we started with our school social worker having mini lessons during those times. So we're continuing to do that this year, so that again, we're providing that education that parents were asking about or mentioning in the survey when we asked them for ideas. We are also in the process of bringing PBIS to Laneview. So we have a PBIS leadership team that is functioning as school sites members, and we are recruiting for parent members, starting with PTA, School Site Council, but one of our biggest goals is to expand to our larger parent community. We want all parent voices. So that's something we're still trying to figure out as a staff. How do we bring our other parents in who are unable to be as involved as our PTA parents maybe? How can we get them in as well? And we also had, last year was our first one we ever had, was a STEAM night that was in collaboration with the teachers and PTA, and that was a very successful event. So we're having the second one this year in May. Actually, I believe it's May 23rd. They already have that date because they're really gung-ho about it. So that was a very fun night because the kids were able to have to participate in different events that the parents ran. And pretty much that's it. One thing I'm really trying to do, again, is getting that further involvement with all of our parents. So trying to figure out, do we need to have things at night, record them during the day? So that's what we're talking about. I'm asking parents when I see them in the morning, because as we know, this is one of the harder things, making sure we have every voice in the room with our school site. So any further ideas? I'm always asking the community and the parents, what can we do to include them in what we're trying to do at Laneview? Thank you.
Thank you. In my experience, I think the best time to trap the parents is during drop-off. Have a coffee chat, coffee and donuts. They never say no to that. So just tell them, please, this is the way for donuts. I've been there. So.
So thank you, Principal Burrows, for your presentation. I know it's a lot of work to come up with all these different opportunities, different times of day to try to reach our parents. And, you know, I know that participation will grow with all of the different strategies that you're trying to put into place. And I know this isn't about parent engagement, but more on the instructional side. I just also want to mention I received this week notice from one of your teachers, Principal Burrows, very proud that they were certified for their AVID walkthrough and really excited about being able to achieve that. So again, like PBIS and other programs that we do, consistency in those strategies is so important to make sure that the students are understanding the benefits of that and that they're putting that into practice with their learning. So I know your AVID team was very excited to make that first, pillar of accomplishment. They sent it my way to make sure I knew about it. And so congratulations to all of them for reaching that milestone.
And just want to thank all of our principals for coming out tonight and all their hard work on their SIPSAs. I know they enjoy reading my feedback and comments, and it's a collaborative effort. And so I also want to thank Hong Ho. She also is very valuable in this process, helping with the data and our other Ed Services team members. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Any other comments from the board? Okay. So thank you for the opportunity. Thank you for the presentation. Thanks for all the hard work. All right, on this item, hang on. Yep, all right. So do we have a motion to approve the 23-24 SIPSA plan for all 13 schools?
I move to approve.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. All those in favor will say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries 4-0. Thank you so much. All right, moving forward to item E, under bond program. Yeah. Thank you all for being here tonight. All right. Under bond program, item 1 is reject all bids for bid B01 2023-24 HVAC and roof replacement for the old district project. Dr. Fuentes.
It is recommended the board reject all bids received for bid B1 2023-24 HVAC and roof replacement for the previous district office project over at Piedmont, as was mentioned earlier during our bond presentation.
Perfect. Thank you. Is there a motion for this item?
I move to reject.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. All those in favor will say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries 4-0. Thank you. Item 2, Build Corp. Inc. approval of an agreement for the LED light replacement project phase 2 at Laneview and Ruskin Elementary Schools. Dr. Fuentes.
It is recommended the board approve the agreement with BuildCore Inc., the lowest responsive and responsible bidder for bid B2 2023-24 LED light replacement phase 2 at Laneview and Ruskin.
Perfect. Are there any questions? Is there a motion?
I'll move to approve this agreement with Build Corp. Inc.
Thank you.
Second.
All right, it's been moved and seconded. All those in favor will say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries 4-0. Thank you. Item 16, request for staff follow-up. Is there anything from the board? Nothing. Any items for future agendas? Nothing as such. And I'll entertain a motion for adjournment.
Move to adjourn.
I'll second that.
Okay, second, all those in favor will say aye.
Aye.
Meeting adjourned at 9:15 p.m. Thank you so much for being here.